Right. We may need to, yeah, just in case. Give it just a second. All right. How's y'all's weeks been so far? Let's do highs and lows. What do you think?
Highs and lows.
Yeah. Let's talk about a high of the week, low of the week.
Blowout on the camper, low of the week.
Just 45 minutes from home.
But you had a good Samaritan stop.
We did. A very nice young man and his family stopped, and he had all the tools to get it changed, and we, wanted to pay him, and he's like, no, and like, no, we insist, since I'm running, throwing the money into the truck with his wife, and she's, no ma'am, like, no, you keep it, I'm not taking it back. So they were very nice.
That's
a good time.
wow. That's rare these days.
It is.
That's amazing. How about you, Wade?
Highs and lows. The highs is we're leaving Friday to go to the lake for a week.
Woohoo.
So yeah, hopefully we don't have a blowout.
Yeah.
Lows. Kim's not feeling good, so hopefully she gets well before we go to the lake.
Yeah. Yep. Janice?
My high was just this weekend we were with the grandkids, opening day baseball, and
Yep.
it was hilarious, because they're
Yeah.
little. And then I really haven't had a low, I don't guess.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Joe?
All eyes are on you, Joe.
Well, we had a great time at the camp, except my son's dog got ran over.
Oh, dang.
Grandkids. That was working bad.
That's sad.
But they still had a good time even after that. Kind of ruined it a little bit.
Yeah. Man, that's tough. Happened to my nephew, Brett. Watched their dog get hit a couple years ago. That's just, that's tough. That kind of sticks with you, unfortunately. That's why I got my girls chickens a couple years ago, so that as they kept dying, they just got used to death, and now they're just like sometimes too much.
Do you get eggs?
Who is calling me right now?
Do you get eggs?
Not right now. I'm part of that conspiracy of feeding them Tractor Supply feed, and they're not producing right now. So I don't know. Sure enough, we put it together. I was like, I thought it was just winter, but now I'm like, they've not been producing eggs right now. And yep, I feed them Tractor Supply feed. So I don't know if you've heard that conspiracy, but
Well, I don't-
true
I
or
haven't
not.
heard specifically Tractor Supply. But
Yeah.
Yeah, the chicken feed. Yeah.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe they'll produce again. I don't know.
Hey, is the sound, are they hearing us?
I don't know.
Are y'all hearing us? There's only one person.
They went from we hit at 3 at one point, but then it just dropped back down. So maybe not. I don't know.
If you're watching online, can you hear us? Comment.
Hello.
Let us know how your week is going. That's good. We had softball this weekend too, and that was a high and a low. We were 2 and done, so we went out and lost both of them and went home. So there was that, but it was good. Tracy said yes, he can hear us. Good. So today, for the first couple of moments, for a little bit, we'll just kind of open like we normally would during our regular lunchtime study. So if you're watching online or if you're in the room and you've got questions or things that you've noticed or things you want to talk about before we get into the actual study, and then we're going to go ahead and study chapter 43. Just because we need to, we're going to start. We got to keep moving, and if we don't start speeding up on this, I'll just make it go way too long, and then everybody will get bored with it. So, so at this moment, if you're at home or if you're in the room, we'll just open the floor to any kind of questions. It can be about the Joseph study. It can be about things that you're studying yourself, or just questions that you've had in the past.
One of the things we talked about it the other day was when you were talking about the thing that was mentioned the most. I thought grain was what, and you said, we never actually talked about what the grain, how important that was.
Yeah. That'll come up to play actually in this study a little bit. So tuck that one away just a few minutes. But yeah, grain was mentioned a bunch of times, especially in one specific section of chapter 42.
Make
So
him write his questions down and ask how to get with him later.
you're wrong. You're wrong. Hey, Scott, shh, just write them down. Just write them down, buddy. Come back and see me tomorrow. As I lock the door. That's a good question. That's good.
6 people watching.
All right, pressure's on. You guys better bring the content. For those who are on, we're just opening the floor for some questions before we get into chapter 43. So if you've got something, write them out in the chat this time.
So do we know if they did anything with their silver that was in their sacks? I mean, does it ever come to light?
We're going to find out here in this chapter.
Yeah.
Good job.
In the gun.
Way to set it all up. Hope you're getting excited.
And where are you at, 43?
43. Yep. While I'm at it, I know one of the questions that you had on Sunday night was when we're going to do the Genesis 1 through 11 study. So I want opinions. What are you thinking? What is anybody? I mean, do we want to take a break? Do we want to? My only fear is that we'll start it and then it will hit into summertime and then we'll start to lose everybody and they'll miss out on kind of the rest of it.
We don't want to burn you out. For us, I would rather continue
Yeah.
and not lose a week, but that's me.
That's not when it comes to the Genesis stuff, that stuff is not what would burn me out. So that part's not a concern. I would get burnt out on other things, not this. So that's not a concern. But if it's something that you just want to keep going on Sunday nights, and we'll keep going on Sunday nights if you'd rather.
Will this be-
We're shooting for next Sunday night. We will not have anything. We'll do chapter 44 the following Sunday night, and then the following Tuesday we'll do 45. And then the next Sunday we'll finish off with the last 5, which will seems like a lot, but it'll make way more sense as far as kind of the overview of the last 5 chapters. So
This Sunday night, you're not gonna have anything?
this Sunday night I will not have anything. I will be in Arkansas with with students at a spring break retreat. So this Sunday night we will not have anything.
Now, the other day we talked about, so this Tuesday is a Bible study, and we talked about another Tuesday was a Bible, what you were doing?
Yes. Yeah, so 44 will be not this Sunday night, but the next. And then 45 will take place that Tuesday.
Okay.
So we're just going to back-to-back kind of try to speed through this a little bit. And if people can come back and watch it, it'll just stay on Facebook and then come back and watch it if they want to or not. So, and then we'll finish it up, I think, that following week. We're leading up to almost to Easter, I think, is what we're kind of gained. If we started Genesis 1 through 11, and probably the week after Easter is kind of the dates that I'm looking at. And then we would just kind of continue through.
Well, I'm for that.
So-
That would be my want.
Okay. Well, if anybody has opinions, just let me know at any point. So
Whatever you do.
So how long will it take, you reckon, for the
that's a little tougher to kind of figure out because there's quite a bit jam-packed in there. So my assumption is it wouldn't take any less than like what we did with the Jonah study as far as like 12 weeks go. Now we wouldn't have to do it all in that back-to-back. We could do it up to a certain point and then just take a couple week break or a month break or something, come back to it and like just do the first 6 chapters up to a certain point, and the next 6 chapters or 5 chapters afterwards. We could do it that way if we wanted to. So it's difficult because we're in that time period where it's like everything becomes more and more spotty, and as far as
My guess is you get to Genesis 6:4 and you're going to use a whole day on that one.
well, just with you, just yes, yep. Write those questions down, Scott. That's good. Anything else? All right. Let's just jump into it then. Wade, would you open us up in prayer, and then I'll get into 43.
Father God, thank you for this day. Thank you for a time we can come together and study your word and learn more about you. Father, I pray that we apply what we learn to our hearts and to our lives, Father, that we can be better Christians to shine a light for you. Just be with Adam now as he brings this time to us. In your name we pray.
Amen. All right. Anybody remember where we left off in chapter 42?
Well, we talked about them not being spies, and
Yep.
but we covered a lot, so I don't
Yep.
really know where
Brothers aren't slide. Where did the end of 42 end with? Where are the brothers? Where's Joseph? Who's?
Well, they went back to their hometown, I guess.
Yep.
Came.
Yep. So the brothers went back home. All of them. Anybody remember that?
One was left.
Yep. One's still behind. Old Simeon. Yep. I guess he was not heard. That's a really dumb dad Bible joke, by the way. His name means to be heard. So there you go. There you go. Old Simeon left behind. All the other brothers go back home. Thank you for the pity laugh, by the way. That makes me happy. Brothers go back home, and Joseph is still in Egypt. So that's where we're going to pick up.
They found that they've got the
Yes.
money still at this point, right?
Right. They stopped. They found that they had the money, and they were very afraid. They were very afraid. So then they go home. They tell Jacob. Jacob's gonna look at it, and he's gonna end up, just distraught again that another son is gone, and he's gonna bereave himself with gray hairs down to Sheol again, down to the grave. Is where we left off at the end of 37.
And the brothers have not recognized Joseph as their brother.
They have not recognized Joseph as their brother yet.
So why exactly, I mean, maybe I missed something in there, but why exactly are they afraid because they have this money? Because
Yes.
I know they were supposed to give it to pay for grain.
Correct. And now they took home basically a double portion of grain, ultimately, and they also took home the money. So now when they go back to retrieve their brothers, it's their word against Pharaoh's or the lord of the land that they didn't steal this money, that it just happened to be back in their sacks again. He sets them up ultimately to have to, they're going to risk their life when they go back.
Okay.
And they already have been accused of being spies in the land.
Now they're going to be thieves.
Now they're going to be thieves and spies who are dumb enough to come back and get their brother, I guess, apparently. Everybody good with that? All right, let's read chapter 43. Now the famine was severe in the land, and when they had eaten the grain that they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, "Go again, buy us a little food." But Judah said to him, "The man solemnly warned us, saying, 'You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you will send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you will not send him, we will not go down. For this man said to us, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you.' Israel said, 'Why did you treat me so badly as to tell the man that you had another brother?' They replied, 'The man questioned us carefully about ourselves and our kindred, saying, Is your father still alive? Do you have another brother?' What we told him was the answer to these questions. Could we in any way know that he would say, 'Bring your brother down'?" And Judah said to Israel his father, Send the boy with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you, and also our little ones. I will be a pledge of his safety. For my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back, to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. If we had not delayed, we would now have returned twice." Then the father Israel said to them, "If it must be so, then do this. Take some of the choice fruits in the land, the bags, and carry a present down to the man, a little balm, a little honey, gum, myrrh, pistachio nuts, and almonds. Take double the money with you. Carry back with you the money that was returned in the mouth of your sacks. Perhaps it was an oversight. Take also your brother, and arise. Go to the man. May God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, and may he send back your other brother, and Benjamin. And as for me, I am bereaved of my children, I am bereaved." So the men took this present, and they took double the money with them, and Benjamin. They arose, and they went down to Egypt, and stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of the house, "Bring the men into the house, and slaughter the animal, and make ready for the men are to dine with me at noon." The man did as Joseph told him, and brought the men to Joseph's house. And the men were afraid because they were brought to Joseph's house. And they said, "It is because of the money which was replaced in our sacks the first time that we are brought in. and so that he may assault us and fall upon us and make us servants and seize our donkeys. So they went up to the steward of the house and spoke with him at the door of the house and said, O my lord, we came down the first time to buy food. And when we came to the lodging place, we opened our sacks, and there was each man's money in the mouth of his sack. And our money was in full weight. So we have brought it again with us, and we have brought other money down with us to buy food. We do not know who put the money in our sacks. He replied, Peace to you, do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has put treasure in your sacks for you. I received your money. Then he brought Simeon out to them. And when the man had brought the men into Joseph's house and given them water, they had washed their feet. And when they had given their donkey fodder, they prepared the present for Joseph coming at noon, for they had heard that they should eat bread there. When Joseph came home, they brought into the house to him the present that they had had with him, and bowed down to him in the ground. And he inquired about their welfare, and said, Is your father well, the old man of whom you spoke? Is he alive? They said, Your servant, our father, is well. He is still alive. And they bowed their heads and prostrated themselves. And he lifted up his eyes, and he saw brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, Is this your youngest brother of whom you spoke to me? God be gracious to you, my son. Then Joseph hurried out, for his compassion grew warm for his brothers. And he sought a place to weep, and he had entered his chamber and wept there. Then he washed his face, came out, and controlled himself, and said, Serve the food. They served him by himself, and them by themselves, the Egyptians, who ate with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat with the Hebrews, for it was an abomination to the Hebrews. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at one another in amazement. Portions were taken to them from Joseph's table, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as any of theirs, and they drank and were merry with him. Okay.
In my text, it says the Egyptians could not eat with the Hebrews, for that is detestable to the Egyptians.
Yes.
And you read...
Oh, did I read? I said the wrong word. Let me see. The Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat with the Hebrews, for it is an abomination to the Egyptians. Yes.
I heard it wrong.
I'm sorry. So, what do you think? What are your thoughts? Anything stand out?
Why did he give him 5 times as much?
Why did he give him 5 times as much?
I know.
All right, I need a share.
Because this was his brother, a brother from his.
From another mother? No, I'm just kidding. His mother.
His
A brother from his mother. Okay.
His mother, he was partial to him, I guess.
Yep. And what has Joseph been shown to be doing to these brothers?
Showing favoritism for sure.
Okay. Favoritism to one, but what was he doing to the other ones before they came down?
Robbing them of the joy of having everything else everybody else had.
Okay. Why was he doing what he did when he sent them back and he gave them the money and he kept Simeon? What was all this a part of? Like, what was Joseph's intentions here with his brothers?
Was it payback?
Not payback.
I don't know. I had kind of took it a different way when I was reading it about the silver being back in their sacks, unbeknownst to them. I just kind of thought he was being nice.
That's
you
what I
know?
thought.
Okay, so he is kind of
Like,
being
my
nice.
brothers, I'm not going to charge you for this. You can have all you want. It's yours.
He is showing them grace and forgiveness in a way, but he's also testing them. He's number one of the things that we talked about on Sunday night is he's recreating the test that originally in chapter 37 and still into this, recreating the test that got him here, right? So he has them abandon one brother and take money back home to their father, which is exactly what they did with Joseph. They abandoned him, they took the money back to the father. Now, will they do the right thing with this money now? Will they do the right thing? Will they tell the truth to the dad? Will they bring the money back and retrieve the one brother that they left? So it's a continuation of this test. He's allowing them the opportunity to walk back the mistakes that got them there. So now, knowing that, what do you think? They brought the money back. They did the right thing, right? So now he's continuing this test. And he's continuing this test with Benjamin. He gives 5 times the blessings to the other brother of the same mother, but not the same mother as the other 10, right? So now what will the brothers do? This is what got them in that situation in the first place.
Are they gonna be
Maybe
jealous?
Benjamin now.
Are they going to despise Benjamin? Is this going to put, or will they show growth? Will they show that they can do the right thing now?
You got a question on it?
Yeah.
On that same topic, did the amount of silver add up to what they sold him for?
That's none of our business. No, it does not say. All it says is that they bring back a double portion of what was there originally. So it doesn't give us an actual amount what they sold them for. It just says they brought silver down, and then they come back with a double portion of that silver as a present. Anything else?
One thing that he said, he actually says that God gave you this money, that the God of your father gave you the money, not me.
Good catch. Anybody have any idea who said that? This is something I completely read over the first time I read this.
What was the servant there? Wasn't it
Yeah, you're right. It's a servant of Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph isn't there. The servant goes out to him and meets them where? Very specifically, overly detailed.
At his house?
Yes, at the house, but very specifically at the house where?
28 and 29, I think that's where it's
It's a little bit before that, so it'll be verse 19.
It says the entrance.
Yes.
door of the house?
At the doorway of the house. Now, this is a fairly insignificant statement for the most part, except for the fact that this is a theme and a pattern that we will have read over and over and over from page 4 of the Bible. At the doorway. The first time we hear it, Cain and Abel, what's crouching at the doorway? Sin. It's a beast. It's waiting to devour you. What doorway? Doorway to what? Are we to imply here at Cain and Abel story?
The way to Eden, Cain and Abel, right?
That's what we're to imply, yeah. So on one side, which they can't get back to at this point, they're on the outside of Eden, or outside of the garden. They're still in Eden because he gets banished east of Eden. They're just not in the garden anymore. So you're to believe that one side was like, that's God's presence, that's heaven meets earth. Now we're right on the outside of the doorway, and we have the choice. We can rule this, and it's going to be good, and one day we'll be elevated back up, back into this. But when not, the beast wants to devour you. So now, every time that you're reading, very specifically, they're at the doorway of something, you almost always will see this pattern repeated where they have a choice. Their choice is to remain on the outside of this doorway and something bad happened. Think about all the things that happened previous to this at the doorway. The men of Sodom and Gomorrah come to the door and they bang on the door and they demand that the angelic beings who are in there with the human beings, the godly ones, need to come out because they want to rape the daughters of Lot, right? And it's on the outside of the door. It's the beast that's crouching, right? And if they were to control the beast, maybe they would get to enter. This right here is a very clear picture of a pattern where the brothers are now presented with a servant of the Lord of the land with an opportunity to come clean. And if they come clean, what are the implications? What will they get to do right afterwards? What scene follows them coming clean?
Is this the dying at the, is that what you're talking about?
I mean, what scene follows this back in Joseph's story? He gets told they're standing at the doorway with the servant. He says, verse 21, they admit at the lodging place they opened their sack. Each man's money was in the mouth of the sack. The money was full of weight. We've brought again with us. We brought another money down with us to buy food. We don't know who actually put the money in our sack. Is that all true? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So what they were being accused of, have they made right? At the entrance?
They did, but they knew before they got there that money was in there, and they kind of acted like they didn't know. Or it seems like to me they kind of act like they didn't know, so they were still kind of being
Before they got where?
Well,
Deceitful.
let's come back to that here in just a second. Let me finish this point real quick.
Talk about when Joseph asking about his father still living.
No, so this is at the doorway. At verse 23, we get the who is speaking. The servant is speaking at the doorway to the brothers who've now just come clean with the money.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
What scene? That's my fault. What scene follows immediately after they come clean with the money? The servant says something, and then what scene follows that immediately? What?
Simeon, he went and got Simeon.
They're restored with the brother, and then what do they do after that?
Washed the feet, welcomed them in.
They come into the house and they eat joyfully with the Lord of the land. So it's this picture of, hey, you're standing at the door, you can lie, you can continue to make up whatever, but if and when you come clean, now there's restoration of family. You're going to get to come in and you get to sit at the table and eat with the Lord of the land. It's just this overarching motif or theme of like, you're going to be presented with the door. One side, you'll get to enter again. Now think about that when Jesus comes back and says, I'm the door. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. I am the door. And in Jesus' crucifixion, there's something that's split in two in the temple. It's the curtain. It's the doorway has now been split into two, and now we get to come back through. It's a pattern that will just keep playing. So anytime you ever see, it's specifically at the doorway, at the gate, at the door of the tent, at the entrance of the tent. Pay attention to that theme and just start questioning. Okay, what are they doing with this? Is there a good side? Is there a bad side? What's going to happen on what side? Does one side lead to death? One side lead to maybe life, new
You
life?
and I talked about that one time before, and it happens a lot.
A lot.
Throughout the Bible about the doorway, and every time, just about, maybe every time, it seemed like every time who's ever on the outside is in a bad way, and if you're on the inside, it's good.
It's
Kinda
brilliant.
like east and west.
Yep.
If you're heading east, it's bad, and coming from the east, it's good.
Yep. It's brilliant. Okay, what else stood out?
So what's the purpose? Because it's just a little short snippet right there about he asked how their father was, what was their father's welfare.
Mm.
And it's just kind of quick, but then it goes into their bowing down to him. And did they figure out who he was?
No, not yet. They have not figured out yet.
So why the asking about their dad or his dad?
Well, okay, so there's probably multiple answers to this, but the human question is he's now been restored with Benjamin. There's one yet he hasn't been restored with, that Joseph hasn't been restored with. Yep.
So at this point, he doesn't know. He actually does not know if his father's still alive.
Mm-mm. Well, so in the previous chapter, which was a whole year previous to this, he tells them to go back and retrieve the brother. But are we to imply that he knows the father's still alive, that he's going to send him back? Well, we don't know that. It never his concentration was on Benjamin, the brother, not on the father. All they say about the father is that we are all sons of one man, one father, which was a true statement, but not that the father is still alive necessarily. And so now there's one yet who has come to Egypt that he needs restoration with and for. And so this is where I get the he's trying to continue that test. I want you to bring the father now to me is where we're going to go with this ultimately. So he's kind of setting up what's coming next.
So what's the present? What's the present?
Well, yeah, that is a question. What items did they bring? Verse 11 through 13.
Pistachios.
That's a weird one.
Nuts, myrrh, spices, honey,
Anything stand out in that?
myrrh.
Why?
Myrrh's always the embalming and it's the gifts to Jesus is. I mean,
It is.
myrrh's always.
Have we heard of maybe balm and myrrh previous in this narrative?
Yeah,
Was that what they
Three wise
bought
men.
Joseph with?
Yep, that will be later. They'll complete that pattern. But yep, say what you said again.
That's what
Three
they paid
wise
for
men.
Joseph?
Yeah, yes. So that's what they see, the Ishmaelite Midianite traders coming down, bringing gum, balm, and myrrh to Egypt, and Egypt is going to be representative of death all throughout this narrative. Gum, balm, and myrrh are a way to, or they will use for, mummification or whatever you call that. What it was like embalming. There you go, embalming, in the land of death, right? So now what we're going to see is a new caravan who will take a favored brother, down to Egypt. Will they leave that brother, or will they return and restore? It's just an inversion of all these scenes that we've already seen. He throws in a couple little things, by the way, these little tiny hints. Can you think of any other time when honey is mentioned in the Bible towards anything? The land of milk and honey, which is considered the promised land. Another time where a caravan of 12 will then go into the land and spy out the land that they're coming from, and it's a land of milk and honey. It's amazing, right? Nuts and grapes and all these clusters, right? You're watching these patterns of people. They go into the land. It's the land of milk and honey. We're going to even take some of the land back down here, but guess what? The Father still is living in the lands of the sojournings, not the promised. They're living in this land, but they don't own this land. They don't exist here. It's not fully there yet. So now we're going to take a little piece of that land down to Egypt, down into death. And this will come into play later on when they're going back up to Egypt as a band of a caravan of people who come up to spy the land that God had already promised them at one point. So yeah, they're going to bring milk, honey, or they're going to bring honey, gum, myrrh, pistachio nuts. I always think that's funny. I think there's actually more to that, but I can't recall what that one is at the top of my head.
Good choice, though.
Yes, pistachio nuts are fantastic.
They're better if you shell them yourself.
Yes.
But what's crazy is, did they break this pattern of a caravan leading the brother down and selling into slavery? Did they break the pattern of what happened in chapter 37 by selling a brother who goes down with a caravan and he ends up enslaved? Now they're doing it again. They're coming down with the brother into Egypt. Will they break this pattern? What happens in 400 years? They're all enslaved. The pattern is technically not quite broken yet, which will require one who will be half Egyptian and half Israelite to break that pattern and to lead the caravan back out of the enslavement. Set up to Exodus. Spoiler alert. Okay, what else? Anything else that you noticed? Somebody mentioned that whether or not they won't see his face, Joseph's face again. This is a continuing play of they could not recognize him. They could not recognize him. They don't recognize him. They've forgotten him. They're not recognizing him. He's veiled in a way. It's a continued play of like they're not recognizing in the wrong land, in the wrong house, right? And playing off that theme of the wrong house and the wrong land, where is it that family is the most united, the most cohesive, the most put back together, the most godly? In the wrong land, in the wrong house, right? You're seeing the picture of you're getting pictures of oh, this is the way it should have been. This is the way it should have been. But they're not in the promised land anymore. Now they're in Egypt. Now we've gone backwards from Abraham's promise. We've moved backwards. But it's like a glimpse of oh, this is the way it should have been. And because it's moved backwards, that's why we're going to see that 400 years later, we're still going to be in a worse situation because it's not fully the way that it was meant to be. If that statement makes sense. If not, please ask for clarification.
So the language spoken in this is, he's not speaking in Hebrew, he's speaking in Egyptian, yes?
Yeah, we are told in the last one he was using an interpreter. In the last chapter, he was using an interpreter between them. So we are to believe that he is speaking Egyptian here. Yep.
Which is another reason that it fails from knowing who he is.
Correct. Plus, they shaved him. They changed his clothes. He's got new signet rings. He's dressed like an Egyptian. He probably walks like an Egyptian. Ha 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 ha. There you go. Just had to call back that one.
You were waiting for that.
I was excited about that one. So yeah.
Why did they put them in order of the youngest to the oldest? From the firstborn to the youngest, and then after that, they said that the men had been seated before him in order of their ages.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
And their result was they were amazed, right?
Yeah.
So there's an implication that if the brothers pay attention, that maybe this guy actually knows us.
That's what I was thinking too, because when they went back and told the dad that he said the only way we'd see his face is if we brought back our youngest brother.
Mm-hmm.
How did he know through them, looking through their eye, how do you know we have a young brother?
Well, they'd mentioned that before, in the chapter before, to him.
And how did they know he was the youngest?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, I don't know if they mentioned. He says that one is no more and one is not here. What did he say?
Was Simeon the youngest?
No,
Just
no,
gave
he's
them
talking about
both hints to
Benjamin.
know that
I mean,
they
He's
should-
talking about Benjamin.
They should try to be able to figure out, hey, this dude knows more about us than we do ourselves.
Right. I'd have to look back and see if he ever mentions necessarily, or if they ever admit to them that they're youngest. I think actually they do say that our youngest is still at home,
I think so too.
remember that.
I think
if I remember correctly, but I don't.
I don't know where to find it specifically, but I think so.
Okay, yeah, right here in 13 and 42:13. The youngest is now with our Father, and one is no more.
Yes. Yep. So he does. The youngest is still with our father, and one is no more. Yep.
So we actually don't know if Benjamin's 12 or
Well, this is
36 or-
this is believed to be 22 years later. Like if you go back and count, like how he spends 2 years in prison, we get a fast forward of time of basically 22 years, and he will reveal that again a little bit later on in this book. He'll say like how long he was kind of in bondage, but this is believed to be 22 years later, ultimately. So if Joseph was 16, he's going to be here. Benjamin's younger than him. We believe he's probably maybe, in his 30s, 20s, late 20s, early 30s, something like that. So, yeah. So, but they're grown, as far as that goes. Anything else?
I was just reading, when, like when we were in Belize, the women ate in one hut, and the men ate in the other. Well, then here it's talking about how they ate with, he wouldn't eat with the.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, why? He would eat with. He would eat with anybody, and he was.
Wonderful intentions. You have your intuition is just right there.
But the reasoning in Belize, and one of the ladies explained to us, it's not so much that they felt like the men felt they were better or anything like that. It's just that in their tribes or whatever,
Yeah.
a lot of them weren't married, or their spouse or whatever had passed, and so they didn't want like Joe to sit here and Scott to sit over here, and Scott be married and Joe not, or something like that. And so they wanted all the men together and all the women together. That way nobody was singled out. And I kind of feel like that's what they were doing, and they were singling them out. And it's like, why?
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Why that? Knowing that every single line and word is just so intentional. Why would it mention that he didn't sit with them because it's detestable for an Egyptian to sit and eat with a Hebrew? Why do you think?
Well, I think they felt like they were better.
Okay, so there's a potential that the Egyptians think that they're better. Mm-hmm.
He wants to keep the facade up, huh?
Wants to keep the facade. I think you're both right, but I think that there's more things going on here, bigger implications. My question is who is Joseph?
Well, he is an Egyptian, right?
No.
I mean, no, he is.
He's an Israel. Yeah, he's a Hebrew. He's an Israelite, right?
He's second in
Or
command.
or is he now?
Yeah, what does he consider himself?
What is he considered now? Is he Egyptian or is he Israelite? Because God has made him forget all of his struggles. He has 2 kids with a half Egyptian priestess, or with an Egyptian priestess. His kids are now half Israelite, half Egyptian. And think all the way back to Abraham's covenant. It will be the seed of Abraham is what will bless the world, right? Think back a little previous to that. The son of Ham is who will be cursed, who is Canaan. There's a reason why God does not want them intermingling with the Canaanites. They're the cursed ones. We want to go through the seed of Abraham, right? So they're told constantly, over and over, and they will continue to be so. Don't intermix with the Canaanites. Keep the Israelite seed. Meanwhile, Judah and Reuben have both now married and have kids with Canaanites. So all of the family will end up in a land where it's absolutely detestable for the other people to intermingle with them. So it will protect the seed of Abraham in a foreign land. And yes, so that for 400 years they will begin to grow into a great and Hebrew nation that then God will rescue and pull back into the promised land filled with all the Canaanites whom he did not want them to intermingle and marry. So 2 big implications. Number 1, Egyptians do not eat with the Hebrews, but it's in Joseph's own house. Is Joseph Egyptian or is he Israelite? Well, we know by birth he's Israelite, but the implication here is now that he kind of fully implicated himself into Egyptian status, and now he will move the rest of his family down here. Spoiler alert. And they will begin to be, the seed will be protected for 400 years for them to grow into a nation so that they will be rescued out of, exodus out of, and rescue the world. Does that make sense? In a way? It's brilliant. It's just a random line there that you just read and you're like, oh, that's, I mean.
That saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans, and that's kind of what he's done.
If they stayed in the land of Canaan, they're just mixing with the Canaanites. Mm-hmm. They've already proven that. Yeah. Anything else? Oh, there's so much. We're going to run out of time quick. Did anybody else catch what else they brought down from the promised land down to Egypt that was hint, like a point back to, hey, this is the promised land, this is Eden, the future, like Eden on earth, in verse 11.
Choice fruits.
Hey, why don't you bring some of that? The good fruit. Like, bring some of that good fruit down there. Hint, hint, Hebrew Israelite who's reading this in the future. In the promised land, where the grapes are the size of our head, you know? I love stuff like that. To me, that's just so funny. They will just throw little tiny things in there, and you're like, oh. Did you also notice, Israel, again, Jacob will be considered Jacob and Israel both in this passage again. And when it says Israel, his frustration with the brothers is that they told the truth this time. Their report back to the father was actually the truth. And Israel, his behavior is accusatory, it's self-centered, he's blame-shifting. Right? AKA, has Jacob himself, is he still Jacob? The heel grabber, the one who tripped up other people. He's frustrated when things are actually going the right way still. He doesn't understand, like, the good and bad still, Israel, like the founder of Israel. Okay, so let's move from that just a little further. let's go back to the land of Canaan. He's talking with the sons. He's talking with one specific son. Which son are we talking to at the very beginning? Who's trying to convince him to let him bring Benjamin?
Talking to the beginning of 43?
Yes.
Judah?
Yes, he's speaking with Judah. Remember, we're kind of getting the tale of two seed here. Judah, the last time we saw him back in Canaan, what was he doing previous to this in chapter 39 or 38?
He's the one that sold him, wasn't it? He sold Joseph.
Well, he's part of that, yeah. And then the next chapter shows that he,
Oh,
uh,
so had sex with his
yes,
daughter.
he's sleeping with Tamar, the Canaanite, right? And he does something in that chapter that will tie directly to this chapter and show something. He says, go back to 38, verse 17, real quick. I'm sorry, 18. Read 18. Somebody read that.
He said, "What pledge should I give you?
Yep.
Your seal and its cord and the staff in your hand."
Yep. So he's talking to Tamar. He's going to make a pledge to her, and it's going to be his stuff. And this is what will be used to ultimately prove he was deceptive, right? Now go back to 43 and read verse 9.
I will be a pledge of his safety.
What's different here? What's he offer in the first
Offering
pledge?
himself.
He offers his stuff in the first one, but now he's going to just offer himself as the reckoning, as the protection.
So has he grown up a little bit?
The implication here is that, he's no longer one selling his brother or giving his stuff as proof that he's good on his word. He will be the proof. He will offer his self up, like in a self-sacrificial way, right? This is going to be the difference between the lust and that loyal love that he's going to show to his father and his loyalty to the family now. He's grown, ultimately. Right? This is going to be the first messianic picture, right? Of John 14:6. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man will come back to the Father but through me. This is going to be that first picture of Judah, who will be the seed line of the future Savior, of the Messiah, who will say, it'll be through me that he will return, that you will be restored, that relationship will come back. Any other thoughts? There's still some more.
So in this case, you're saying that Judah, who initially sold Joseph, now you're saying he's grown up and he's this is God's plan. He's seeing God's plan working in his life.
Well, I'm saying that the text is trying to give you again the picture between the two seed, and this one particular line of the seed. We're seeing a maturity and a loyalty that wasn't there before, and that he's willing to intercede on, even if it cost him his own life. Think about that with the previous brother. A different brother made a promise right before this chapter, and he said, no, let us take Benjamin back. I swear to you, I'll bring him back, and if not, you can take the lives of my sons. Now, that's Reuben, the oldest. Now Judah will stand up and say, no, I'll risk my own life to make sure he comes back. Right? I'm not going to risk somebody else's life. I'm going to give up. Greater love hath no man than to lay down his own life. Right? And so he's giving that picture of growth, of maturity, and a bigger glimpse of what will take place. That he will go down, risk his own life in death, in Sheol, in Egypt, so that restoration can take place.
So it was kind of like trying to redeem himself, or what he did.
He's trying to redeem everything. He's trying to give a picture of Complete restoration. Now, unbeknownst to him, the human side of him, he doesn't know that he's doing this to Joseph. Right? I mean, in any way.
I mean, I could come across with a straight face if I was Joseph. It's like, especially like when it says he
Yeah.
wept.
Yeah.
You know, he went crying.
Yep.
It was probably turning his guts on the inside.
Yep.
Wow, you know?
Yep.
I mean, I just couldn't, my face would show it all.
Yep.
You dirty, rotten scoundrel, you
Yeah.
sold me into slavery.
Yeah.
But look at me now. How
Okay.
do you like me now?
All right.
Right?
Now let's do the fun stuff. This is where it gets really cool. Okay? So we see this story, we can kind of see this idea of redemption, these pictures of the Messiah and that kind of thing, right? Now let's reread some of this, understanding, or relook at some of this, understanding that this is clearly beginning to show this pattern and picture of what the Messiah will be. They bring double the money back. They carry back with them money. It was returned in the mouth of their sacks, right? They continually bring this money back, provide this money back. The sack is going to be provided and given back, and it will release a prisoner, right? Not just that. Once they do that, they go into the house and they get to sit down and eat a dinner, right? Think about another time in the New Testament where 12 plus 1 are sitting in a dinner. And a proclamation will be made. One of you will betray me. And he looks at who? Judas, right? And Judas then does what? He leaves.
Kisses his cheek.
Kisses a cheek, leaves, and comes back with a money bag. And will turn him over into custody. Turn Jesus over into custody, right? Guess what Judas's role in the 12 is? Matthew 6:19. John 12:6. He's the carrier of the money bag. He controls the money in the 12. Now put that back into Matthew 6:19 when he says, don't store up for yourself treasures in heaven, right? Or on earth, I mean. And in Matthew 6:21, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And in Matthew 6:24, you cannot serve both God and money. One will rule the other. So you're getting a picture of Judas, the money bag carrier, versus Judah, who will take the money bag and restore it and return it, showing that the money was worth nothing. The money was worth everything at the beginning. It was worth his brother's life. They took the money. We shouldn't kill him. We don't earn anything killing him. We should just sell him. We'll take the money. Who's he serving now? May God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, and may he send back your other brother Benjamin. As for me, I am bereaved, my children, I am bereaved. And then this random servant at the doorway, peace to you, do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has put treasure in your sacks for you. I receive your money. Then he brought Simeon in and restored him back. And so what you're seeing is, again, this inversion that will take place later at the Last Supper, at the Passover meal, where Judas will not have learned and will choose to serve the God of money. And what does that end in? He throws the money in the temple and runs and hangs himself. He dies. Meanwhile, here, they're brought to new life. Can you see? I mean, it's just so brilliantly interwoven. And it goes even deeper than that, right? What do they do at the dinner? Verse 24.
Steward took the men into Joseph's house, gave them water to wash their feet, and provided fodder for their donkey.
They washed their feet. I wonder what Jesus does at the Last Supper with his disciples. To wash his feet, right? They prepare for the present, for Joseph's going to very specifically be coming at noon. At noon. He's going to be coming at noon. And when they do, they will do what? They will eat bread. They broke the bread. I am the body. This is my body. Eat that. Can you, I don't know. This is so nerdy to me, but I think it's so brilliant that all of these things that just seem like a random story of where they get to come and sit and restored and have a little Eden moment in this house in Egypt, we're going to see replayed again. Except it's going to be like, did we learn? Nope, Judas didn't learn. Dang it. The seed we're back at square one again. which will lead to, obviously, the crucifixion and darkness that happens to fall upon noon on the cross and the crucifixion. What's your thoughts?
Just goes to show you that, prophecy began way back then.
Mm.
Everything they prophesied came to pass
Yep.
eventually.
I agree that everything you said is right. I wish I saw it
The way
that
he
clearly.
did.
I-
Yeah.
After you say it, I go, yes, absolutely, you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. But I don't see it until you say it.
It takes time. It takes time. I mean, it takes a
You
lifetime.
have
I mean,
to make
really.
yourself, from what I'm getting is you have to make yourself go back and look at the other stories that you've read that even have a hint of anything in this
Mm-hmm.
story.
Yep.
That's one thing.
But
I
you
think
got to have a
very
memory
good
to remember that stuff.
You have to read it through the filter of all of those narratives. I mean, you have to read every passage going, I know this is intentionally connecting to everything. It's all interconnected, and that's why I always say, like, once you read it with that understanding that I'm not just going to excuse the fact that I'm looking at a scene of brothers eating together. I'm going to read this knowing this is connecting somehow. This is trying to teach us something and reveal something about God and who he is.
And there was 12 of them.
Yeah. Right. And they're all together in one place. Except for the Father. Wonder where he is. In the promised land. Well, come on, let's bring him back down. I mean, just like, and not only that, they did one more thing inside the house when Joseph gets here. They slaughtered an animal. And this will tie all the way back to Luke 15, the parable of the prodigal son. And then you get to play with those themes, looking back at that prodigal son, and you're just, I don't know. It's just brilliant. And also, the brothers believe that the invitation to dinner is a trap to take them captive, right? Meanwhile, the Last Supper will end up being a trap in which Jesus will end up taken captive. He will get what the brothers didn't get, but deserved.
But he knew what he was getting into, and these guys didn't.
Yep. That's so good. I don't know.
He did it willingly for all of us here.
Yep. He went into the land. He went down into the pit, into Sheol, so that we will be forgiven. I mean, one thing we often forget is all of the narratives that led up to this about the brothers. Simeon, Judah. Simeon is one of the ones who murdered all the people at Shechem because they raped Dinah, his sister. He's taken into captivity until the brothers return. Once the brothers come back, he's released. He's free. So he spends a year in prison, but is still in this, patterning, offered forgiveness and mercy. I think I don't think I could have planned that any better. We're at 1 o'clock. We should, what thoughts before we close?
So I've always heard that every bit of the Bible points toward Christ, but I've never realized exactly how much of it like that.
Yep.
Them, basically the Last Supper taking place right there, a symbol of it anyway. And I've never realized how much of it actually does that, but I knew it did. I just thought it was just the generations going toward Christ.
That and
That's more so
the
than-
prophecies. That's something I mentioned on Sunday night, was that I always knew that the Old Testament pointed to Jesus, but it was always in a prophetic manner, like the prophecies of the
Right.
prophets, right? But I never couldn't figure out what to do with these until that's when I started discovering it all pointing to Christ, outwardly prophetically, but also pattern wise. Because at the end of the day, we're still falling short. We're getting glimpses. We're getting little tiny glimpses of what will be necessary for Jesus to come and be and do. But only small glimpses, because the man part will always fail and always lead to death and more destruction and slavery and separation,
The
broken
original
families.
plan has played out time and time and time again.
Yep.
Like you said, man always screws it up.
Yep. But the one who remains in control from the whole time, it's how, spoiler alert, it's how this narrative will end. What you meant for evil, God meant for good. That's how the Joseph narrative ends. What you meant for evil, God meant for good. Spoiler alert. But we're left on a cliffhanger. Benjamin, you are the favored one. You are going to get 5 times. 5 times. Have you learned, brothers? Let's find out. In a week and a half. Let me pray for us. Father God, thank you for this story, for this narrative, for the actions of some men that seem very, very far removed from this historically. But God, that we are able to read and just read through amazement of how you are interwoven in every single page, every single line, and that you've been revealing to us, for those who are willing to search and seek, you've been revealing to us that you've been in control from the start. That there will be nothing that will surprise you, and there will be nothing that will change that, and we're thankful for that. God, we're thankful that we have this in our hands, in our every personal, in our homes, that we get to open and read and discover more about who you are. God, I pray that you'll be with us this week. Continue to birth in us a desire to seek, to search your word, to meditate on it day and night. God, that in return you will begin to reveal, that you'll begin to show and amaze. God, it's in these things that we ask it. Amen.
I was listening to a athlete